Is back, baby, and we're breaking down week one that was absolutely loaded. This is the Nitro College Football Show. I'm Burl,
And I'm Street.
and if you love college football, we're here for it. And we are live tonight, so please like and subscribe. But before we dive into our week one previews, I want to talk about a little bit of news that happened this week.
Yeah, so big news came out. SEC moving to a 9-game conference schedule. After all the back and forth with the Big Ten, it seemed like, SEC was kind of standing their ground. They were, our schedules were tough enough. We're not going to do that. And then all of a sudden on, I think it was Wednesday last week, they kind of tweaked the formula. That was how they were going to pick teams for the college football playoff. And they said that they were going to use a new strength of schedule metric. And lo and behold, the very next day, the SEC says, we're going to 9 games.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked that this happened because the big argument for it is that, oh, now they're taking in strength of schedule as a metric. I thought they were supposed to be doing that all along. And I mean, did I miss something here?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was supposed to be part of it, but they were making a conscious decision to add it in, I guess, even more so. And I think that's what the SEC was always pushing for, right? So not only as part of this, not only are they going to have 9 conference games, but the requirement that said that you had to schedule at least one out of conference, either Power 4/Notre Dame game, is staying in those requirements as well. So what does that mean? Starting next year, every team in the SEC is going to play essentially 10 power conference games.
Yeah, so obviously, we've been talking about this a lot earlier this year about how, the top 8 teams or top toughest schedules in the country are like SEC teams. And we saw last year that, you had Georgia, toughest schedule in the nation. I mean, there are several SEC teams in that top 10 toughest schedules last year. And so I don't really buy the argument that the SEC had to go to 9 games just to make their schedules stronger. I mean, tell me how that works.
I think it's all about playoff seeds, right? The SEC was pushing for this idea in the expanded playoff of only 5 AQs, right? And 11 at-larges. And if that's their desire, well, you want to make your teams look as best you can. So if your strength of schedule is higher and they're going to factor that heavily into the decision, then why not? Are they going to look at a Indiana team that goes 10-2 but plays 3 scrubs out of conference? Or are they going to look at a Florida team or, that plays Florida State every year? And let's say Florida State's good and they go 9-3. Who's going to get in? No doubt that Florida team's going to get in, even though they had a tougher out of conference loss, because not only was the conference schedule better, but then they add that game on top. And every single team also, remember that by doing this, when your teams are better and you're playing more conference games, it's going to make everybody in the conference's schedule seem stronger anyway. It's going to inflate it a little bit. So I think they're just looking towards the future, looking towards making their case of how this future playoff thing is going to shake out. I think they were at a stalemate with the Big Ten because the Big Ten kept saying you have to go to 9 conference games. Well, now the SEC has done that. And so maybe that greases the wheels to get them back to the drawing board and kind of figure this thing out. Otherwise, we're going to be on the 12-team playoff again next year because the deadline is, I think it's December 1st. So,
yeah, I tweeted out earlier this week when the news dropped because I saw Big Ten fans just making fun of the SEC. Oh, you cave, we're your big brother, blah, blah, all this stuff. So I tweeted out, I think this was probably done as a negotiating chip.
Right.
It's like, okay, we'll go to 9 games, but I suspect that there's something big coming down the pipe in return.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I think an agreement's coming. Like I said, if this didn't happen, maybe it's that stalemate, but I think this leans in the idea that something's going to happen. And it's probably going to happen pretty quickly, I would think.
It seems to be happening a lot quicker than things have ever happened before.
Right.
It seems like 1 week, oh, we're talking about there might be some rules and regulations next week. There's supposed to be some rules and regulations, but yeah, we're still going to ignore them.
Yeah. I mean, with the SEC and the Big Ten essentially in power of all of this, you have to get them on the same page. And if it's compromises or whatever it is, nothing's going to happen until they agree. So that's kind of where this is going. Just for the SEC itself, there are some caveats in here. So one of the complaints that's been about SEC scheduling is that, like, Georgia in 13 years has never gone and played at Texas A&M. As part of this, one of the things is that every school in the SEC will play every team in the SEC at least every 2 years and play home and away. So, play them once at home, once away, at least every 4 years. So no more of this. A&M's in the conference for 13 years and Georgia's never been to play them in College Station, and they've only been to Athens once. No more of that.
I was hoping that we were just going to keep that streak going.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's never go to College Station, Texas.
Everybody plays every 2 years except for Georgia, Texas A&M.
Yeah. And then as part of how the scheduling is going to work, every team's going to have 3 permanent rivals. So immediately that was the big debate, right? Who's going to be X's rival? Who's going to be this? If we look at Georgia, immediate people are like, oh, it's got to be Florida, Auburn, and Tennessee. I don't think it's going to be Florida and Auburn, Tennessee, because you are going to have to balance out the conference. You can't have Alabama's rivalries be LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee. And then some schools get Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Ole Miss, or, somebody else. Like, you can't have that. You're going to have to balance it out between the schools that are seen as the traditional powers and those that are not. So if you're asking me what Georgia's going to be, most likely they're going to look at historical schedules. Obviously, Georgia will play Florida. They will play Auburn. And I think it's probably going to be Kentucky or South Carolina.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I kind of hope it's Vandy.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of historically, Georgia has played, I think they've played Auburn the most, Florida the second most, and then it's Kentucky and Vanderbilt. So just in terms of the times we played them, that would make sense.
You got to keep the Auburn rivalry going. It's the South's oldest rivalry.
Yeah. I mean, I think they will do everything they can to save some of those serious rivalries. But, like, yes, Georgia and Tennessee is a rivalry, but it's not as big a rivalry to Georgia or to Tennessee as Tennessee is to playing Alabama every year, or Auburn is to playing Alabama every year. So I think they're going to, look at that, and they want to save historical stuff, and I think they'll do their best, but they're not going to be able to save everything.
I do like the rules that they're implementing. Does the Big Ten doesn't have that same requirement to play one out of conference game, do they? No,
not at all. You saw that with Indiana canceling, their future series with Virginia.
Yeah. That doesn't bode well for them, because they could go undefeated against a cake schedule. And like, what happens if they do that and then you have like a 3-loss SEC team in there?
I think there's enough good teams in the Big Ten that it would at least give them some credibility in their schedule. So there's not going to be a year where they don't play anybody credible, but maybe a 2-loss team. 3 losses would be very much a stretch, but maybe a 2-loss team. Let's say, look ahead in 2030, Georgia right now on the schedule today has Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia Tech already scheduled out of conference. So if that holds, Georgia plays 12 games against power teams, and the 2 they're playing are perennial national championship contenders. So a Georgia 10-2 schedule against that, I mean, absolutely could be looked at against an 11-1 Indiana that played maybe Michigan or Ohio State, and that was pretty much it. Yeah, but
yeah, you're right. They will have to play at least one of those big teams from the Big Ten: Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State. One of those,
right?
Yeah, but crazy times. So if you're with us live tonight, thank you. We appreciate you. If you're watching this later and you like this content, you like college football, give us a like, give us a subscribe, tell your friends. We love it.
Yep. So moving on to a somewhat ridiculous story of the week. Auburn seemed the need to make themselves feel good more than once last week. It started with saying that they're going to retire Cam Newton's jersey when Georgia comes to town in a few weeks. And that got their fans all happy. Later in the week, they decided that they were officially going to put Yellowwood as a sponsor on their field, which everybody knows old Yellowfell has been funding their program forever anyway. But the biggest farce was that Auburn decided that they were going to start claiming a whole bunch of national championships that they previously did not claim. Just
Why?
really dumb.
I mean, it is the most ridiculous thing. I mean, if they're going to do it, I think everybody should do it and just have some teams put dates all around their field just by all these bogus random polls where they said, oh yeah, we won a national championship.
I mean, maybe you could be justified in claiming like the old ones, like when there was lots of different polls and there wasn't much national going on and it was just the opinions of certain writers who there was no footage and whatever. Maybe that's the case. But them putting up a banner in 1993 when they were on probation, yeah, they went undefeated, but they were banned from television and banned from bowl games for cheating for like something about paying players, which it was legal then. And then in 2004, yeah, they were a good team, but you know what? USC and Oklahoma were 1-2 to start the season and went undefeated and played in the national championship game. I'm sorry that you started the year like 20th because the year before you were top 5 and you had a bad year. And so everybody ranked you lower. Those were the rules. You didn't win. So you're claiming a national title. What, to make your fans feel better? I don't get it. I think it's stupid. At Georgia, we claimed 4 national championships. 2 of them we won in a playoff. 1 year we went undefeated, and 1 was in the 40s. And there's a couple other ones we could claim, but I sure as heck hope Georgia doesn't do that because I just personally think it's stupid.
Yeah, I don't see Georgia doing that, especially with Kirby and the way things are rolling right now. So, yeah, if Auburn keeps this up, they might have more national trophies than Iron Bowl wins this decade.
They might. They're up there. They're claiming 9 now.
Good for them. I mean, that's up there with Bama and Ohio State.
Right. All right. So before we get into our week 1 preview, we did have one game of consequence this weekend. So over in Dublin, Ireland, they didn't fly out the college game day crew like they did last year. My theory was that they just didn't want to fly McAfee and his crew over there just to get absolutely trashed this year on the company dime. But it was an important game in the Big 12 because you had 2 of the favorites taking each other on in a game they like to call Farmageddon, Iowa State and Kansas. And Iowa State came out with the victory, 24-21. It was a sloppy game. Burl, what'd you think about it?
Well, first, I was happy that the Clones won
Go Clones.
I picked them last week. So happy about that. Yeah, the first half was really hard to watch. Just a lot of turnovers, just a lot of sloppiness. But in all fairness, the field was a mess.
Yeah, you couldn't even barely see they kept repainting it during the game.
Yeah, and they had like these old crappy paint wheels. It's like I thought they'd use like spray paint nowadays. Like, what is this? And it was just like all like coagulating everywhere, glumping up, and just it was a mess. But the second half was a lot of fun. Man, Avery Johnson is really, really good. I mean,
he had a really, really good game. And, you know, it was so ugly in the first half, and everybody's like, oh, defense is playing great, and there weren't big stats. But I think Kansas State ended up with almost 400 yards of offense in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Avery Johnson was close to 300 yards passing.
Yeah, he looked really, really good. And, you know, when we talked last week, I had picked Kansas State as my conference champion on the weight of Avery Johnson. I think he's going to be a star. I think he played a great game, but they just came up a little bit short. It was funny because in the first half of the game, both teams had turnovers like inside their 20, and neither team scored. Like, that was nuts. It was just a sloppy game. But it came down there in the fourth quarter. So, you know, Iowa State was up 3, and they had a 4th down. It was around like the it was like the 30-yard line because they could have kicked a field goal to go up 6 with about a minute and a half left. Gutsy call by Matt Campbell. Goes for it on 4th down. And then the guy ends up getting tackled at like the 1-yard line. They initially called it a touchdown, then they reviewed it. So they ended up, just running the clock. But 24-21, I guess it really could have been 31-21, but it was a good game. Iowa State's got a little lead now in the conference race, and I guess if you're power ranking teams in the country, Iowa State's won right now.
Yeah. Rocco Beck had a really good second half, and he showed a lot of guts and played great. I love the call to go for it. That's awesome. That does take guts, and I think it actually helped Iowa State more that they didn't score there at the end because they were just able to run the clock out instead of having to kick it back off and rely on the defense.
Yeah.
But fun
so
game.
Yeah. So what was more interesting even maybe than the game was what happened after the game. So we talked about Avery Johnson having a great game. Did you see the fight that his dad and his brother got in?
I saw that on Twitter. At first I was like, what am I watching? And then
I thought it was a joke. People were like, there's some Kansas State fans. Oh, it's got to be Avery Johnson's dad and his brother. Then Avery Johnson's dad posted like an apology on social media today.
I mean, that was wild. Like, that was a straight up brawl.
Like family business. They're handling their family business.
Yeah. I mean, they should have gone to a pub.
Yeah, but it was a fun game, but a good week 0 game. If you got to have one, at least one with a little stakes is better than, a throwaway game. So,
hey, football's back, baby.
Football's back. But now it's time for week 1. And man, you look at this schedule, this may be one of the best week 1s we've ever had. The schedule is absolutely fantastic. And we'll start right at the top. We've got a rematch of last year's national semifinal. Number 1 Texas, number 1 in both polls, number 1 first time in school history preseason, heading up to Columbus to take on Ohio State. The game is a big noon kickoff, 12 o'clock. Ohio State's favored by 2. Burl, how do you see this one playing out?
Oh, man, this is going to be so much fun. Highly anticipated week 1 showdown. It's a rematch of the semifinal last year, which Ohio State won, obviously. And you've got a lot of strength on strength here. Some key matchup or some key things to look at, though, is both teams are going to be debuting new quarterbacks. So there's a lot of stuff that could go really well or go wrong. I think
2 incredibly hyped quarterbacks, number 1 quarterbacks in their class, 5-star, 2 of the, bigger hyped up names to come in to starting roles in a while. Between Arch Manning, Julian Sayin, like it doesn't get any bigger from guys who were big time recruits than that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the hype doesn't get any bigger than a Manning.
Right.
I mean, the bloodline is there, but it's his first major start, and it's a hell of a start on the road in Columbus, and it's gonna be. I thought it was gonna be at night. No,
it's a big noon kickoff, man.
Oh, that's good for Texas. That's great for Texas, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we've talked about coming in this season, we both our Heisman favorite is Jeremiah Smith, and so the question is, can Texas stop him? Nobody really could stop him in the playoffs last year. But coming into the season, PFF, who does a pretty good job of looking statistically, and they're not always perfect, but they rank the Texas secondary as the best in the country coming into this year. Can they, I think somebody online said it, or a commentator said it best. He said, every play, I'm playing 10 versus 9. I'm putting 2 guys to take care of Jeremiah Smith every play. It doesn't matter. I will figure it out with my other 9 on the rest of the players on the field. I'm not going to let that guy beat me. I don't know if you can. Like, even if you do that, he can probably still beat you.
Well, I think in the game last year, he didn't do too much. And And I believe it was Brooks Austin who was looking at tape of it, and he was saying that, you know, Texas really didn't do anything crazy on defense. You looking it up?
Yeah.
Checking me there. Cool. But he was saying that they were doing like some base defense, and it was working. But also Texas defense last year was elite. I mean, way up there. And besides Jeremiah Smith, I mean, you've got other great wide receivers at Ohio State against that Texas secondary.
Yeah.
You know, might be the best receiving corps still in the country.
You're right. They did hold him in check last year. He only had one catch in that game for 3 yards. So they absolutely did hold him in check. If they can do that again, you know, that will be quite a task, but it would certainly help. I think the interesting battle in this game is going to be the running games, right? Ohio State had that amazing running back, two-headed monster last year. It's all new, right? They've got James Peoples is in line to be the one. West Virginia transfer CJ Donaldson, and then they have a guy, a four-star freshman named Bo Jackson.
I love it. When I read that, I was like, no way.
And so that's on the Ohio State side. Texas in the game last year, Ohio State shut them down. That Texas rushing attack that was really good with Wisner and Blue last year, they had 58 yards on the ground in that playoff game. If they're going to win, they've got to put up, with that really good backfield that they have this year, they're going to have to put up more yards, and I think they're going to have to take advantage of Manning running as well. Archer, it's his first big start in a big game, and you know, all the pedigree aside, you're going into the horseshoe, man, and nobody's comfortable going in the horseshoe. So I think if he can break a few runs, especially early, that'll get him comfortable. That might get the crowd a little bit, you know, quieted down. I think that's important if Texas is going to win the game.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, the other big thing, the big matchup that I'm looking at is the Texas offensive line versus the Ohio State defensive line, because Ohio State's defensive line looks pretty nasty. You know, that's probably one of the areas where where it's considered a strength for them. And Texas has to replace some folks on the O-line.
Right. They've got 4 new starters, right?
Exactly.
It arguably had the best offensive line in the country last year. So you are building out new with a first-time starter. Well, not first time, I guess he started a couple games, but first full-time entrenched starter at quarterback.
Right. But yeah, last year's Texas defense had a knack for turning the ball over, and that's always going to be a factor in a game. But you know, Ohio State's defense was 5th in the nation in rush defense last year, and I would look for that to continue in this game. I think it's going to be a tough sledding for the Texas offense, just because that Ohio State defense, even though they lost a lot of people, they still have some dudes there, and you still have Caleb Downs in the backfield.
They've got talent.
Yes, they have a ton of talent. I mean, just looking at some of the this is an interesting thing about Ohio State's defense, though. Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator now.
Right. They lost their defensive coordinator to Penn State, right? He took the money and ran. So yeah, they're replacing their offensive coordinator too, because Chip Kelly left, and so they promoted Brian Hartline, who's been the long-time receivers coach there. You know, bringing in top flight receivers to OC. So yeah, it's definitely new coordinators, and we'll see how that changes. I don't know if it changes much, because I think a lot of what they do is based on talent. But
yeah, and at linebacker, Sonny Styles, he's a dude that Ohio State defense is looking pretty good.
Yeah. So, Burl, what do you think? Who's your pick in this game, and how close is it?
Man, I was going back and forth on this one. I was making arguments to myself for both teams, because on one hand you got Texas, they've got more experience at quarterback than Ohio State does, but they are replacing offensive line. They're replacing receivers. And on Ohio State side, they're replacing a lot of people too. But it being at home for Ohio State and that deep, it always comes down to the defensive lines. I think Ohio State's defensive line is going to be good enough to shut down Texas. So I think it's going to be a close game, and I'm going Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take Ohio State to win a close one here as well. Spread's only 2, so it's essentially a toss-up. When we talked last week, I picked Texas to win the SEC and potentially be a national championship winner. So I think this is going to be a good game. I think it'll be good for both teams. I think whoever loses is not going to drop far. And, much like that Georgia-Clemson game a few years ago, just a battle of attrition, probably lower scoring than you might suspect. And, give me Ohio State to win a close one at home.
Awesome. That's going to be a great game. All right. The next big game we're going to talk about, and this is a huge one, the Dance at Death Valley. I just made that up.
Nice. George R. R. Martin would be proud.
I know. Nerd. But yeah, this is going to be a great game. You've got two teams that have a lot of talent returning on both sides of the ball. And one of the big areas that you're going to be looking at is LSU's offense versus Clemson's defense, particularly around the offensive line, defensive line. LSU lost 4 O-linemen last year to the NFL draft. That's impressive. So it's a completely new unit at the offensive line. They're going into hostile environment. So that's going to be tough. Clemson's defensive line, considered the number 1 defensive line in all of college football, with draft prospects, Peter Woods, TJ Parker. It's just a deep defensive line. So it's going to be a battle.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. So LSU has dropped 5 consecutive season openers. The last 4 of them have been big-time matchups at neutral sites. The 5th one, of course, being when they lost the opener of the 2020 season as defending national champion to Mississippi State. So they're going on the road this time. So maybe they're trying to flip the formula because playing neutral sites just hasn't worked. But this is a heck of a matchup for the national scene, right? You've got 2 Heisman hopefuls in Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. And you've got a couple of teams that both have unique coaches who there are people that love them, but I would say the majority of the country kind of hates both of them because they're kind of outspoken and a little set in their ways. And, I think Klubnik, we know what he is. Like, he developed so much last year after struggling that Georgia game. He played lights out, and he played like that 5-star player that you expected him to be. Garrett Nussmeier has shown flashes. He puts up good numbers. I mean, of course, we talk about how good he did in that SEC championship a few years ago. There were some rumors that he was battling some injuries. It came out he's got some tendonitis in his knee. Don't know what that factors in. But what I do know factors in is that today it was announced that LSU has granted him the number 18 jersey. And if you know anything about the 18 jersey, it's a jersey given to a senior at LSU who kind of exemplifies the team and everything. They haven't had an 18 on offense in a while. So that's a big honor. That means that they really are placing, the faith that they have in Garrett Nussmeier. Now, he's got a couple of big receivers. Nick Anderson, Aaron Anderson are, his 2 big targets. But a name to watch out for is Kentucky transfer Barian Brown. Now, this is a guy who's uber talented, and much like Dane Key, who was also there at Kentucky last year, didn't have a great quarterback situation, but definitely showed some flashes. So I think if Nussmeier has a big day, I think you're going to be seeing a lot out of Barian Brown.
I do too. But I also look for the running game to give a little bit of boost. They've got sophomore Caden Durham coming back and people are expecting a big season out of him. But they also have a really highly touted running back, 5-star recruit, Harlem Berry. I mean, just with a name like that, there's going to be greatness. I mean, this guy, he like ran for over 8,000 yards in Louisiana.
Jeez, that's like Derrick Henry numbers in high school.
Yeah. Just like over 150 something touchdowns. Just crazy numbers. Yeah. So I'm interested to see him get the ball, especially against that tough defensive line. But man, this quarterback matchup is going to be great. I mean, we could see a shootout, but I could also see a complete defensive, struggle.
I don't see Clemson giving up tons and tons of points at home.
Yeah, I don't.
I could see LSU doing it though. LSU was 76th in the country last year against the pass. Clemson's got Antonio Williams, who's a fantastic receiver, and Klubnik. I think LSU, the key is a couple of spots on defense. Whit Weeks, their leader at linebacker, he's kind of been banged up a little bit. If he's good and Harold Perkins is back to form after the ACL tear, then they're going to be fine. They're going to be a different team. But if those guys are both kind of slow or hampered, they're really going to rely a lot on that LSU secondary to guard some really good receivers. I just don't know if they can do it.
Yeah, I'm not as high on the LSU defense as much as I am Clemson, which I don't think anybody is. But they're the defensive coordinator's there in his second year, so there should be some continuity there. Defensive line is going to be better, like you mentioned. Linebackers are going to be better. I do kind of wonder about the secondary though, because they did have to retool a bit and got some transfers. One of the top corners, this is an awesome name, Mansour Delane.
So what do you think, bro? What? Yeah. So what do you think? What happens? What happens on Saturday night in Death Valley East, I should say?
Yeah, I think it's Clemson. I think Clemson takes it. Too much firepower. I mean, they've got a couple of receivers that were close to 1,000 yards last year. I think they'll figure out something with the running game because they are replacing Phil Maffa. Man, just being at home, that's an extra bump. And I just don't believe in LSU yet.
Yeah, LSU's losing streak in season openers, combined with a couple of questions on defense. It's not that I don't think LSU is going to be good. I think they're going to be a pretty good team this year. I just don't know if starting your season on the road at Clemson, when Clemson is coming in, probably one of their better teams that they've had in the last few years. Give me Clemson at home to win. It'll be close, but I don't know if it's going to be like a one-score game. It might be a 10-point game, somewhere in that range. So I'm going to give me the Clemson Tigers to defeat the LSU Tigers.
Clemson.
Yeah.
All right. Another highly anticipated matchup, which I know one that Georgia fans are interested in as well. And that is Notre Dame at Miami. What's your thoughts?
Notre Dame comes in 2.5-point favorite. And it's Notre Dame, so and Miami doesn't usually have much of a home field advantage in the Orange Bowl, or not in the Orange Bowl, but Pro Player, wherever they're playing these days.
Hard Rock.
So yeah, Hard Rock. So being at home doesn't mean a lot to Miami, I don't think, or to Notre Dame in this situation. And it's interesting. We know what Notre Dame is. They are a heck of a team. They are an experienced football team that made it to the national championship game last year. But their question is at quarterback. They got the best running back tandem, either number one or number two running back tandem in the country, either of them or Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
But their leader back there is a new quarterback, and it's going to be CJ Carr. And that was a surprise because a lot of the stuff you were reading all summer was that Kenny Minchie was going to probably get the job. But CJ Carr got the job. So we're going to have to see what happens.
Yep. Grandson of the former Michigan coach, Lloyd Carr.
I did not
those.
realize that, but
Yeah.
that's interesting. Lloyd Carr, one of the great coaches in Michigan history.
Yep. Has some pedigree there. So the expectation, though, is that he's actually going to improve the passing game because, last year Riley Leonard was primarily a runner. He could throw pretty well, but his thing was running.
Right.
And
17 touchdowns out of your quarterback position is nothing to slouch on. So Riley Leonard did a good job of running that offense, what it was designed for last year. But yeah, you're right. They would expect that CJ Carr is not going to be that guy. They're going to let those two horses they got that running back do their work, and he's going to throw the ball a little more.
Yeah. And they've got a great offensive line. Notre Dame has a great offensive line returning this year, and they have a great wide receiver group. You got Jaden Greathouse, which is a great name. Will Pauling, Malachi Fields. He was a transfer from Virginia. So look for them. Look for the offense to continue rolling, and especially against Miami, they did go out and get some secondary people transferring in. Keontae Scott, Xavier Lucas, and Zachariah Poyser, I think his name. They transferred in because that was really a huge weakness in Miami's game last year. If their defense could have done half of anything, they would have been a playoff team easily.
Yeah. And their defense wasn't horrible against the pass last year. Just really struggled against the rush. They couldn't stop a lot of people running the ball. I think they were 19th in the country versus the pass. So not bad, but yeah, the problem was not on offense last year for Miami. It was definitely on defense. And that brings us over to the other side. That brings us over to Miami, where you got former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck, getting the keys to the Miami Lamborghini and taking over down there. And
you mean he just drove his Lamborghini down?
Yeah, I did. It's ironic, right, that his first game's against Notre Dame because he didn't get to play in the game against Notre Dame last year.
True.
But yeah, we're gonna see how this works out. Carson Beck coming into last year, first round draft pick was expected, was a Heisman favorite after a great 2023 season, and it just didn't go great in Athens last year. Georgia won the SEC, but it wasn't Carson's best year, and he was still going to go pro. He was done at Georgia. Miami paid him a lot of money to go down there. And with that comes a lot of expectations. So the question for Carson Beck is, does he regain that form he had in 2023? He's coming off a major elbow injury, and I haven't heard too much about that it's given him problems, but it's always a thought that, that could be a problem, or if he got hit wrong as well.
Yeah, and to me, there's a few things that are going against Carson in this situation. Number one, coming off injury. Number two, learning a new offense. And number three, the wide receiver core is completely different than it was last year. They lost 5 of their top pass catchers. That's huge. So they're going to have to rely on transfers to come in. They do have some promising talent in Josiah Trader, but that's a huge question mark. And we saw how well Carson did with a subpar receiving core last year.
Right.
It wasn't great.
No. It was a lot better when he had Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers.
Yeah. He will have a much better offensive line, though.
True.
I'll give him that. So given time to throw, maybe he'll make his receivers good. He'll throw them open, maybe.
Yeah. So, this game, it's obviously huge implications for the college football playoff. Not really just for these two teams, right? Because Notre Dame, in their unique situation, they can potentially take a playoff spot from somebody, right? Because they don't have a conference championship and they have this nice little setup. 10-2 almost will always get them in the playoffs. And this year, their schedule lines up really easy. They have Miami this week and Texas A&M next week. So every loss that that Notre Dame gets, a chance for them to lose and drop a game like they did to Northern Illinois, and they'd be out. And so for the Big Ten and for the SEC, and even for the Big 12 and the ACC, schools looking to get an additional at-large bid into the playoff, this game has huge implications. Also because Miami is one of those teams that might be fighting for one of those playoff games as well.
Yeah.
So a Miami win would really help them look better because Notre Dame is a pseudo ACC school anyway.
True.
It could really help bump at the ACC if one of Miami's best beats Notre Dame.
Well, it's always a big deal when you beat Notre Dame. It just is. I mean, Notre Dame probably has like the most history, most storied program in college football with the mystique of everything. So whenever you get to play Notre Dame, it's a big deal. So who you got?
Yeah. So Miami, this is important for Miami to try to win this game because they've also got a game against Florida in a couple weeks. So they've got a lot on their schedule. And unfortunately, I think Notre Dame's going to win the game for Miami. Unfortunate for Miami. I think Notre Dame's the better team. I think being on the road, like I mentioned before, I don't think that plays too much into it. I think they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage, get pressure on Beck. And even if Carson throws for a bunch of yards, I just don't know if they're going to be able to do it enough to beat Notre Dame. So give me Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think Notre Dame is going to be able to handle this game, and it'll probably be close. But with Notre Dame's offensive line and that rushing attack, that's a quarterback's best friend. So give me Notre Dame. I think Miami's offense is still going to be adjusting and trying to get rolling, and Beck's going to get, he has to get used to throwing with his new arm, I guess. So yeah, Notre Dame all the way.
So that's the end of our big top 10 matchups. But next we go to Tallahassee, right? We've got Alabama, who a couple years ago we would be salivating over this matchup as well. Unfortunately, FSU went into the dumpster last year. So you've got number 8 Alabama, favored by 13.5, going to take on Florida State. And I mean, I think my opinion on this. Alabama's going to win this game. I just don't see Florida State being able to muster enough to beat a super deep Alabama team when they are kind of in rebuild mode after the disaster of last season. But there is a little bit of intrigue in this game, right? Jam Miller getting hurt for Alabama opens up a spot for a running back. Is it Richard Young? Is it somebody else that steps up? Because they're going to need to establish somebody before Georgia in a few weeks. So that's one thing that I would watch for. Second thing I'd watch for is how does the Bama offense look with Ty Simpson at the wheel?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing about Alabama is they got a lot of people returning. It's like they're up there in the list of top teams that have the most players returning. So look, they're gonna be good. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Ty Simpson will be interesting to watch. Highly touted recruit. I'm really interested to see how well he does, because kudos to him. He's stuck around, and you don't see that very much anymore.
Yeah. So obviously, I think Alabama wins. I think they win big. But do you think Florida State can even keep this competitive?
I actually feel like they might be able to not have it be completely out of hand. They do get a new defensive coordinator this year, so there's gonna be a lot of pressure on them.
They got a new offensive coordinator too.
Oh, that's
the
true.
Gus Bus has landed in Tallahassee.
How did we forget to talk about that?
Well, and they've got a quarterback that keeps talking trash to Alabama, which maybe a couple of years ago when you had the talent there, that was a good idea. But I don't know. You played at Boston College last year, and you're talking trash to Alabama. I'm not sure if that's a good idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, they might be able to keep it respectable, but I think Alabama's going to win this pretty easily. between Ty Simpson, Ryan Williams. He's 18 now. I mean, that might just be enough right there. And then they'll figure out who their running back's going to be. It might be two people. I mean, it's Alabama. They got a stable.
Yeah. So we're both taking Bama. We're both taking them to cover. I'm taking them to like double cover.
Triple stamp, a double stamp. I like it.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So back up here in Atlanta, the Atlanta used to be the Chick-fil-A game, whatever it is now, Allstate or somebody, the game where they have the old hat, the old helmet. You got Tennessee favored by 13.5, taking on Syracuse. This is an interesting one. I think without Tennessee's spring practice quarterback drama, I would definitely be taking Tennessee in this game because I love Syracuse and I love Fran Brown, but he just lost so much, right? They lost a ton. They were so good down the stretch last year. They got a lot to replace, and I think Tennessee's defense is going to be really good. But yeah, just with Tennessee's drama at quarterback and Joey Aguilar just now being named the starter, I don't know. Maybe there's a chance for an upset there. What you think?
I think it's going to be tough because, like you said, Syracuse did lose a lot. I mean, they're replacing Kyle McCord at quarterback, who broke all the records at Syracuse.
But Donovan McNabb records.
Yeah, but I mean, they get a pretty decent transfer. Steve Angeli from Notre Dame, expected to take.
He looked really good in that playoff game when Riley Leonard was down there against Penn State. He came in and kind of led a couple drives. He looked pretty good. So yeah, I mean, he could come in. He was just named the starter, I think, the other day. So that's one spot to watch for Syracuse.
But yeah, I think Syracuse just lost too much last year, and that they're going to be trying to find those people to fill the void because they lost a ton on the offensive line, completely revamped wide receiver room. They lost a lot of good players like Jackson Meeks last year. I think he was a 900-yard receiver or something like that.
Yeah, I think they had a couple of them.
Yeah. I mean,
Kyle McCord threw for like
lighting it up. I mean,
threw for like 4,500 yards or something crazy. So,
yeah. And then on the Tennessee side, the defense is going to be solid. Running backs is expected to be a strength of Tennessee. They have shown over the years that they're really good at running the ball. Last year was Dylan Sampson. Who's going to step up this year? But the big question mark is that receiver because they lost his top playmaker, Squirrel White. And he went to FSU, which we forgot to mention that too. So
it's live, man.
I know. We'll do it live. It's all good. But that's a huge question mark for Tennessee, and throw in a new quarterback to boot. There's a lot of stuff to be figured out in this first week, especially for these two teams. But I do think Tennessee is just going to be too much for all the losses that Syracuse is backfilling.
Yeah. I think if you're a Tennessee fan, I think you're watching the Tennessee defense to see Jermon McCoy, to see if he's recovered from that injury that happened, in the offseason, because he's arguably a top 10 player for the draft next year, probably the best, one of the best defensive backs in the country. You want to see him out there. You want to see him looking good. I think this game's going to be closer than the spread. I think Tennessee wins. I think Syracuse is going to cover. I think this might be a 7-10 point type game.
I could see that happening.
And nothing on Tennessee. I think their defense is going to be great. I think it's going to be lower scoring than you would expect out of Tennessee, right? But I think, lower scoring than what you would expect of Tennessee a couple years ago, but not for what you saw them do last year. They were not as crazy high scoring last year after the first couple of games of the season. They were a defensive run the ball team, and I think you might see more of that in Atlanta.
Probably, and by all accounts, the reports that you read online is that Joey Aguilar is fitting in with that offense pretty well. So the bar is pretty low for quarterback play at Tennessee over the past couple of years. So if Joey Aguilar can come in and provide a boost and be more consistent in completing passes down the field, Tennessee could be dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, give me Tennessee.
All right. So now we'll get to the game that it's not really much a consequence, but it's a fun one for us to talk about. Georgia hosting Marshall, 3:30 on Saturday. Number 5 Georgia is favored by 39.5. Now we all know this was not supposed to be Marshall. This was supposed to be Georgia at UCLA in the Rose Bowl. Game was canceled a couple years ago when UCLA made the move to the Big Ten, and Georgia was kind of left in a bind, had to find somebody short. Marshall was available. On paper, you're like, oh, Marshall, they were the Sun Belt Conference champion last year. That's going to be great. They, a good, solid group of 5 team that's had some pretty good years. They had one of the best defensive players in the country last year who was leading, everywhere in sacks. Then you look a little bit closer. Charles Huff left, went to Southern Miss, and took a whole bunch of players with him, including his quarterback. They had a mass exodus of players. As a matter of fact, they couldn't even play in their bowl game last year because they had too many players transfer. This is literally a Marshall team that really looks very little like the one that was a conference champion last year. Coach Tony Gibson, he's never been a head coach before. This is his first job. He was the defensive coordinator at NC State last year. So he's bringing in Rod Smith as the OC, who was at Jacksonville State last year, who likes to let his quarterbacks run. They had 1,300 yards rushing last year. So
is that the same like Denver Rod Smith?
I don't know. That I don't know. But yeah, they just, like I said, they lost so many players. They lost Mike Green, who was one of the best players in the country last year. Their key player returning is Toby Payne, a tight end who had 6 touchdowns last year, but that's their really only pass catcher of note that they have coming back. So this is going to be a tough game for Marshall, going on the road to face a top 5 Georgia team.
Yeah.
Good luck to them.
I feel bad for them. I do. I mean, because they literally did replace the entire team, and you don't see that.
Yeah.
I mean,
like 25 guys in the portal plus 20 or 25 guys that graduated, moved on.
Yeah. So obviously this game is not going to be about Marshall, but the new Georgia offense and the new Georgia defense.
Right.
We got a new guy at the helm, Gunnar Stockton. We all saw him in the SEC championship game and against Notre Dame. Played pretty well enough to win, but it was his first start. So looking forward to seeing him play, and I think we'll get to see a good bit of Ryan Puglisi too.
Yeah. I mean, this game is kind of important for Georgia, right? Because your first road game is in 2 weeks, and it's at Tennessee. You're going to start SEC play on the road at one of the toughest places in the country to play against a playoff team. So Georgia really needs to get established, like you said, in this new offense that they're building around Gunnar Stockton with a couple of transfer wide receivers, with Colby Young back. You really want to see them limit the mistakes. And that's the thing that everybody groaned about last year was the drops, right? Like you really want to see Georgia not make those type of mistakes this year out of that receiving room. You know what you got at Nate Frazier. Nate Frazier's solid. He's going to be able to run the football. But you really want to see some plays being made out of those receivers.
Yeah, especially with the talent that came in through the transfer portal. Zachariah Branch out of USC. He's the gadget guy, super fast, former 5-star recruit, expected to have a huge year. And speaking of huge, Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, big-bodied target on the outside, apparently lighting it up at camp this year. And on top of that, Georgia gets back Colby Young, who was out for most of last year. And that allows Dylan Bell to go back to his kind of gadget position, line them up anywhere, get them the ball, let them do something cool.
Yeah.
And then you got London Humphreys still kind of hanging around there. So this is the deepest the Georgia wide receiver room has been in a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for some big plays to be happening. So a lot of deep ball passes. And then once that gets all settled, we'll see a heavy dose of probably Roderick Robinson, Bo Walker, and Chauncey Bowens.
Yeah. And I think defense, the only thing you really want to see in this game on defense is none of the mental lapse, big mistake plays. Like Georgia had some of those last year against really bad teams, Mississippi State, UMass last year. You just don't want to see those. You want to see the guys keep, even if they give up yards, you want to see them keep them in front of them. You don't want to see the 60-yard play because of blown coverage. You don't want to see bad communication. You don't want to see guys overrunning routes. That's what they should focus on. This is a game about fundamentals and establishing yourself. If you give up a couple of touchdowns, so be it. If they're methodical, work the dink and dunk down the field. Like I said, this offense is probably going to run the ball with the quarterback a good bit. So if they have a couple quarterback scrambles that get some yards, so be it. But don't let them throw the ball on you because they're not going to be a strong passing offense.
I want to see Georgia's defense come out here and absolutely shut Marshall down.
That would be awesome.
Like, not even let them cross the 50 type performance.
Yeah.
Because if we can do that, that's going to be exciting for the rest of the year. Because that's what the old Georgia defenses did.
Yeah.
It didn't play around with their food like they did last year. They came in, punched them in the face, and never looked back.
Yeah. So under Kirby Smart, Georgia, when they have these big spread type games, they don't cover a lot. They just don't. Kirby doesn't like to run it in, but because you have Austin Peay next week, who is an FCS level school before Tennessee, I think at least this is an FBS caliber team. I think Kirby might want to try to get a little more work out of his team. So you may see him push the ball a little bit more when the subs and the backups get in. Spread's 39.5. I'm going to take Georgia to cover because just for that reason, I think they're going to try to keep putting up points in the second half. If you had to give me a score, 48-7. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I could see Georgia covering just because we want to see what we have on offense. We want to see what these receivers can do. And another area that I'm really excited to see is the secondary. I want to know who's leading in that cornerback two. That to me is one of the most fascinating areas of the team this year, because you got Ellis Robinson, who's been a huge name for the past 2 years, and he's competing with Daniel Harris, and another guy. His name escapes me, but
DeMello Jones.
DeMello Jones, yes, thank you. Those three guys have been just killing it in practice, from what we hear. So I'm excited to see that. This just should be just a fun game for Georgia fans to watch and see what we got.
Yeah. All right. So there's a couple other games that we wanted to just touch on with a couple of picks real quick. Starting on Friday night, there's actually two pretty decent games that could have some implications down the road. First, we'll go at the Boulder. We've got Georgia Tech traveling out to take on Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes on Friday night. Georgia Tech comes into this game as a 4-point favorite. Well, we've got Haynes King. We've got solid Georgia Tech team. We've talked a lot about them going out there to take on Colorado. Did they ever name a starting quarterback at Colorado?
Not that I'm aware of, but I haven't been keeping up with it, to be frank. Let me be frank.
Yeah. So let's see.
Nope,
they still have not. They still haven't named a starting quarterback. So venture to say that you're probably going to see some Caden Salter and you're probably going to see some Juju Lewis. So that'll be interesting to see. I think Tech is a good team. And as we talked, Colorado lost 2 Heisman finalists. And they've had some drama with their coach's health. So I'm going to take Georgia Tech to go out there and get a win. What you think?
Yeah, Tech is just getting more consistent under Brent Key. And it's hard not to like that guy as a coach. I mean, he's like the most sincere, real person out there on the sidelines, and he's no nonsense, and he's got that team playing like that. And they've been recruiting much better and getting some people in the portal. So give me Tech with the consistency. Colorado is just they had too much turnover in their roster, losing 2 NFL players, your Heisman Trophy winner, and a quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, who was the offense last year. So, yeah, Georgia Tech. As much as it pains me to say that.
Yeah. Also on Friday night, we have Auburn traveling to Baylor, a Baylor team that a lot of people have picked to win the Big 12. Auburn, after an offseason of questioning their coach and claiming national championships, but they have a really, really good receiving crew, and they have Jackson Arnold at quarterback. So the question is, can they go into Baylor and score points? And I think Auburn is good enough to go in there and get the win. I'm going to take Auburn to win the game. I'm going to take them to cover the 2.5. What you think, bro?
Yeah, I'm on Auburn for this one. I just don't know why. I don't know why people are high on Baylor. I know they got a lot of people returning, but other than that, I don't know why. So that this is a make or break year for Hugh Freeze, especially after the offseason that he's had with all the golf games and the jokes around that.
Oh, I mean, they lose this, his seat is on fire.
Oh yeah, hottest seat in the nation at that point.
Absolutely.
So he's coaching for his job. Give me Auburn again, as much as it pains me.
All right, last one we want to touch on: South Carolina hosting Virginia Tech. You know, a few years ago, this would have been a pretty good matchup when Virginia Tech was, more of a power in the ACC than they are currently. South Carolina favored by 8 points. You've got Lenore Sellers. You got Dylan Stewart. What do you think, bro?
This is South Carolina.
Yeah,
I don't know how you can't pick South Carolina in this game. Lenore
so my
Sellers,
question,
awesome.
Question in this is why is the spread only 8 points? Like, I look at South Carolina, what they did down the stretch, and yes, they lost a lot, but you've got an amazing quarterback. Virginia Tech has been so inconsistent in recent years, and that South Carolina at home, it's a 3:00 kick. In that armpit of South Carolina. Give me South Carolina.
The place is gonna be loud.
Yeah. So that was kind of it for the picks for this week. Before we wrap it up, bro, you got anything else?
Oh, this is fun. Our first live show. We're gonna be going live throughout the season. So around 9 o'clock every Sunday night. May not always be right at 9, but we're gonna try to hit it around that time. And this show was a little bit different because we got to cover a lot more in depth on previews. After this show, it's going to be a little bit more in depth on talking about what happened versus what could happen, but it also gives us a better sense of what the teams are. And so that'll make our previews go a little bit better too. So yeah, it was fun. Absolutely. So yeah, what are you doing for the game this weekend?
I am going to be headed up to Athens. I'm going to take my son to the game because his soccer and stuff hasn't started. This might be one of the few games I get to go to this year, just with schedules and everything else. Obviously, I'm going to get up there for Alabama and Texas, but outside of this one, I'm not sure how much I'll be up there, but I'll be up there for the game. I mean, the only down part of that is we'll be watching the awesome games on TV, but we should be back. We don't stay the whole time when I'm with him, so we'll probably be back to catch whatever, the late games are and just enjoying being back in college football season.
Heck yeah. I will be firmly planted on my couch in the basement, drinking some adult beverages, watching all these great games. I mean, this is one of the best slates that I've seen in a while. And there are several weekends like this coming up this year. It's just, it's going to be fun. This is going to be a fun year.
Yep. So, all right. Well, we'll see everybody next week. Once again, have a good Saturday of football. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Until next time, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.